Today's Global Day of Action Against Climate Change may only result in progress if world leaders are listening and decide to do more. Weather-related disasters are on the rise and costing us plenty. That's not just activists talking, it's the insurance industry. The CBC's David Common has been looking into this for us. Hi, David.
Hi, Wendy. So today we saw hundreds of thousands of people take to the streets worldwide. But what does it really take to prompt action? Well, the thing that motivates most people is when it costs us personally. Calgary was underwater. Parts of Toronto, too. California is facing a long-term drought. And all these events cost people money. A report this week says we can still roll back these devastating events, but it'll cost $4 trillion to steer the world away from what causes climate change. And that report argues that's less than future catastrophes will inflict.
Because you're not paying off billions of dollars every time you have these kind of floods in the future, you're saving money. Let's say, unfortunately, politically, that saving comes after the next election, usually. So we have a huge political problem of getting action now to prevent damage and costs later.
So if governments aren't leading, perhaps industry will. When CFCs and hairsprays and other products ate away the ozone layer, companies themselves changed, even before legislation forced them to. 2 years ago, the head of Shell Canada told politicians, "You will need a carbon price." A tax, basically, so long as it's imposed equitably across those burning carbon. But that would impact a lot more people than hairspray ever did.
It was a much simpler issue to deal with in terms of its socio-economic implications, and that's the unfortunate reality of it. We're dealing with an issue for which there are huge issues of the economy and driving our cars. In many countries, it's they burn coal to cook their dinners. I think governments can be and should be the instrument of change. We've seen where governments have been very progressive. Norway is an oil exporting country, high latitudes, and yet they have put regulations in place that as a country, they're going to be carbon neutral.
Another industry is talking climate change too, big insurance. It is one of the greatest risks facing mankind. The climate change challenge is obviously enormous. House fires used to be the big payouts for Canada's insurers. Now, they believe it's climate change.
When we look at the insurance record in Canada, we've never seen anything like it. We've seen probably a 20-fold increase in catastrophe losses since the 1950s.
McGillivray works for Canada's major insurers.
But then all of a sudden in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, and of course last year, $3.2 billion in claims. We're just seeing the numbers ramp up, and that's true globally as well.
The response, though, continues to be largely reactive. How to mitigate the changes now, doing things like building higher seawalls to absorb bigger waves from, of course, Wendy, those bigger storms.
So I guess the next thing to watch after this week is that big conference in Paris a year from now. What might be expected there?
Absolutely. Paris 2015 is the next round of what we think of as Kyoto, that big process that keeps going, world leaders getting together. Very ambitious. They want to actually roll back a lot of the effects we now see in just 5 years by 2020. So very ambitious.
I'll say. Thanks so much, David. David Common.